Thank you. First thing, I'm really elated to be here. This is the first time I'm actually being part of this Pro Connect. I think it's a great platform that, Soumya, I think it's your brainchild, but it's awesome. I'm glad to be here. So today I'm going to be talking a little bit about communication. But before that, maybe a very quick introduction, right? People call me KS, and I'm the people alchemist. There's a side story as to how that phrase came on, probably for another day, but I enjoy working with people, right? I focus on future working, helping teams, or organizations create productive and highly engaged hybrid teams, and that too in this age, right? My primary focus has been on workplace culture, employee experience and engagement, and leadership development. But at the end of the day, I absolutely enjoy working with people, right? Where I worked, I have 20 plus years of experience. Started off, computer science in bachelor's in computer science and then master's in computer engineering. But I've never written a single piece of software code in my entire life. Started off as a chip design engineer, but then that was just for a couple of years, and my career went in a completely different direction. When I went and joined Trident, where I worked with the Indian Defense and Space organizations for system integration, variety of systems, like the Agni missile has systems that I've worked on, right? Things like that. And since 2007, past 14 plus years, I've been with Caterpillar. Again, so many roles all around the world. Embedded systems, power electronics, the engines space, different machines, the E&E components, and currently I'm handling strategy and supplier excellence for the India Electronics Organization, right? That's just a quick overview of my journey, but in all these roles and all these companies that I worked on, I think if I were to look back and look at what I've thoroughly enjoyed and accomplishments, it's working with people, setting up teams, and I strongly believe that once we develop people, I think the work gets done, the companies develop, and our vision gets converted into reality, right? So that's my strength. What do I do during my free time? It's absolutely with the kids. My elder daughter, she's a children's book author, and I I am her publisher, illustrator, social media manager, if you may. So a lot of time during the weekends goes for that. And I'm also an amateur YouTuber. I have a channel where I create videos on broadly two subjects, right? Early childhood development, and another one is on leadership and personal development. Been having this for about 4 years or so. I've created maybe 50 videos, and that's a passion. So whenever I get time, I try to create one of those videos. Sports. I play badminton, tennis, almost on a daily basis, but I'm still an NFL, NBA fanatic, 20 plus years, and I still play fantasy football and fantasy basketball, right? Every time the season starts. And to the extent where Sundays, now that the football season has started, Sunday nights, I am awake till 2 a.m. I watch all the first 7 or 8 games before I go to sleep every Sunday. So that's how much of a fanatic I am. I just love the sport, right? So again, leadership is a capacity to translate vision into reality. But I believe that people are the key to this, and my focus throughout my career has been working and developing people. To simply put, that's my expertise. I know I've been in different technology spaces, but and I have no background like power electronics and all those. I have absolutely no educational background to be in those spaces, but people, they've helped me all through the journey, right? With that, let me get into the topic for the day: assertive communication in the workplace. So, what is assertive communication? I want this to be a little bit of an interactive session so that I don't keep talking. Another thing is I only see my presentation. I can't see any of you. that's one disadvantage with Google Meet. But so what is assertive communication?
maybe what to speak and what to not speak in a right place, like knowing about that.
Very good. Knowing your audience and what to speak, what not to speak. Okay, very good. What else?
Probably creating boundaries in a very respectful way, so that we can speak up for ourselves, and at the same time we can stay polite and communicate the point that something communicating a no. That's one of the most difficult things that I face at the same time. That's why I'm here in the session. So that's
absolutely right. That's actually that's how you would define assertive community: the ability to speak and interact in a manner that considers and respects the rights and opinions of others, right, while standing up for our own needs and opinions and rights and our personal boundaries. So that's exactly what assertive communication is. I struggle with the same thing. Saying a no has always been a problem for me. I'm conscious about it and try learning and becoming better, but that's something I struggle with always, right? So before we get deeper, right, they always say there are 4 types of communication behavior. Passive is nothing but I really don't express my needs or desires, right? And I put others' needs above my own. Pretty much in this scenario, I lose and everybody else wins. Just as an example, yeah, I'll take on all these projects. I know I'm overwhelmed, but I'm just going to say yes, and I'm going to figure out how I'm going to get this done, right? Assertive, I clearly and directly express my needs and desires. I'm very considerate about others and what they think about and the boundaries, and I make sure that I win as well as you win. Same example, hey, I've evaluated that my workload is close to full. Do you think we could, maybe split up the projects or maybe change the due dates? Is a way of approaching that, right? Passive aggressive, I indirectly make sure that others are aware of my needs, desires, and opinions, and I don't give, or I give little thought or no thought to, their feelings and their thoughts. I definitely win and you lose. So a lot of body language comes into picture here, right? Maybe a sigh and as if I don't have enough on my plate. Okay, I can't promise anything, but I have no intention. In my mind, I have no intention of completing this work, right? And aggressive, I'm very direct in expressing my needs and desires. And absolutely, I don't give heed to other people's needs, right? I win, you lose. No way, I'm taking on all these projects. Can't you see I'm overwhelmed? Do it yourself, right? That's typically the four types of communication behavior. Some people would consider submissive behavior as another type, but I feel that submissive is probably a subset of passive behavior. So these would be the 4 common types, right? Now, this is where the clip plays a critical role. If you could open the clip and play the clip. This clip is a 3.5 minute clip from the movie Gandhi. The characters would be Gandhi, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, Vallabhbhai Patel, Maulana Azad, Acharya Kriplani, and Jawaharlal Nehru. The context of the conversation is Mr. Jinnah has invited Gandhi to visit with him because there is a legislation that's going to come up, which is going to arrest people if there is any sedition or if they talk against the British government. That's legislation is just going to come up, and they want to discuss how they're going to react to that legislation. So that's the clip. If you would go ahead and play the clip.
Sorry to interrupt, but I think maybe we should let it buffer and then do it or something because the audio is pretty.
Sorry?
I'm not sure of the others, but I don't think it's streaming well because the audio is all broken up for the video. So if it's working for everyone, go ahead. I just brought it up.
Okay. Are you talking about the file in the Google Drive or the presentation that I'm having?
No, the file in the Google Drive, the clip that you are playing right now.
Okay.
It wasn't audible, so I'm not sure if it's just me or others. I think Praveen just mentioned it's not audible for him too. So I didn't want you to spend a
Go
good
ahead
amount
and
of
click
time.
on the Sanjeev. Click on the link in the Google Drive and just play it on your machine. I think we're having some technical difficulties in sharing the audio.
Got it.
I sent a link in the chat window.
Sounds good. I think I missed sharing that. Thank you.
Sure. Were you able to watch the video?
Watching.
Okay, let me know once it's done.
Yeah, done.
Okay, very good. Can I move forward? Is everyone done?
Yes, I'm done.
Okay. So what stood out in your mind in this clip? What jumped at you?
I guess it's thinking outside the box, right? Coming up with a different kind of solution, which is not like a norm.
Okay, thinking outside the box, a different solution. What else?
Maybe like a diplomatic solution rather than going aggressive or.
Okay, so let's do one thing. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and trying to make people realize what they are preaching should be followed.
Okay. So hold on to your thoughts. We're going to revisit this clip after a few minutes again, and then we'll have a detailed conversation about this clip, right? So whenever we talk about communication, we talk about three facets of communication, right? It's one is the tone of our voice, and the words that we choose, how we speak. Of course, our body language, with our gestures and the way we stand or sit, and how our hands are folded and legs, everything, right? Everything to do with body language, and of course, facial expressions. Now, let's just quickly look at how the facets of communication would be for each of these behaviors, right? When we look at assertive, we always see that, the voice is very firm, warm, it is non-accusatory, and kind of well-paced, right? There is direct eye contact. We make direct eye contact. At times firm, but definitely a kind expression, and there's appropriate smiling as we are talking, right? And body language is usually relaxed and calm, and there is definitely respect for personal space. Usually, with us, when it comes to assertive communication, these would be the facets, right? When it's aggressive, the voice is probably angry, loud, and raised. A lot of times, there are probably conflicts and contention, accusatory. Eyes, you can see the anger or rage in the eyes, threatening eye contact, little to no smiling at all, and probably some clenched teeth. So typically, even regularly, right? When we look at people, we know whether they're angry or not angry, emotional, and so on, right? Body language, again, arms folded. There could be a lot of finger pointing or pounding on the table. Sometimes invading others' space, getting too close to them to talk to them, as an aggressive behavior. Passive aggressive, the tone might seem neutral, or it could be negative. A lot of sarcasm could be there, and some sighs. You could hear some sighs, eye rolling of eyes, and some fake smiles, the sarcastic smiles, right? And a lot of sulking. And when it's passive, we would typically see nervous behavior, right? Quiet, very hesitant to talk. They don't want to get into a conflict. So they don't want to raise their opinion or talk back because they're, one, they may want to avoid conflict. Two, they may not want to hurt others. Typically avoiding eye contact, and maybe some inappropriate smiling as well. Body language, there's a lot of nervous fidgeting, clasped hands, slumped shoulders, and so on, right? With this in perspective, can we watch the clip again, but this time around, just focus on the communication behavior for the various people who are there in the clip and the facets of communication. Do let me know when you've seen the clip again. Have you been able to watch the clip again?
Yeah, we are done.
Yes.
Okay. So, so question, right? There are 6 people inside that room. What would be the communication behaviors for each one of them? How would you? Let's look at Gandhi and Nehru. What was their communication behavior?
It was a lot more friendly. The shoulders were drooped towards each other. There seemed to be a banter going on.
Okay. And, just to reiterate the context of this entire meeting, right? Mr. Jinnah wanted Gandhi's support for his plan of getting into violence and hitting the British people, right? But when Gandhi came in, the other individuals, they were kind of on the wall and they were not sure what to do. But this entire conversation, it kind of turned the other way around, and to Mr. Jinnah's disappointment. And if you look at Mr. Gandhi and Nehru, we would consider that as assertive behavior, right? Because their tone of voice was firm, but they had a smiling face. Emotions were removed from the conversations. Examples, when Gandhi was saying that a day of prayer and fasting, and Jinnah says, is that a strike? And then he would respond saying that no, a day of prayer and fasting. However, nothing would work, no buses would run, no offices would work. Again, he's communicating what he has in mind in a positive way, but at the same time making sure that the point is delivered, right? He maintained eye contact with anybody and everybody he was talking to, and the body language was very calm, and he respected the personal space, right? Whereas with Jinnah, of course, when he, initially there was all that, friendly atmosphere and so on. But when they started talking about this British legislation, it was more of an aggressive behavior from Jinnah, right? He was angry, accusatory, and there was clenched teeth. And towards the end, when he felt that his plan was not going to get into motion, you could see that contempt and anger in his eyes, right? With that rigid body language. What did you think of Maulana Azad? What was the behavior?
Neutral.
Willing to be persuaded.
Yes, willing to be persuaded. One thing is that all these people probably showed a range of these behaviors, but in one of those key instances, when Vallabhbhai Patel and Jinnah talk about hitting back at the British folks, he didn't like it, but he did not communicate that. He was hesitant and nervous. He was looking down. He didn't know, he was, with slumped shoulders and clasped his hands, and eye contact wasn't there, right? At that instant, it was more of a passive behavior, but at a later point in time, he was more receptive to what Gandhi was saying. He was more excited about what he was hearing. He liked what he was saying, and then he was supporting that argument, right? And Vallabhbhai Patel. Again, a range of behaviors. First there was friendly, but in between, when he started talking about this legislation, it was more passive-aggressive behavior, because he was talking about the writings of Gandhi and how that passive atmosphere is not going to help with their cause, right? And he couldn't, immediately look at Gandhi and tell him that. So there was he was looking sideways, no direct eye contact, but there was a little bit of sarcasm and body language there at that instant of time. Of course, later, when Gandhi talked about the day of fasting, prayers and fasting, everything changed, and it was more friendly, and that was his behavior. But just at that instant, it was more of a passive aggressive behavior. The reason why I chose this clip is because I love this clip, and I use it for a variety of different things. Lead without a title, communication, there are a variety of things, right? But a group of people, each one of them actually having merit to what they brought to the table, but they still struggled to come to a consensus. And Gandhi, with his tactful assertiveness, was able to bring everybody to the same point, right? Other than, of course, Jinnah, but who had no other option than to just agree to what Gandhi was saying. I love this clip, and it kind of brings out all those behaviors in the 3-minute clip, right? So maybe a quick assessment, right? This is not a scientific assessment. This is something I did a long time ago, and I could relate to it. So let's very quickly go through this. There are going to be a bunch of questions there. Just keep a track of how many times you answered yes. That's about it, right? I'm comfortable meeting new people in social situations. I'm able to say no without feeling guilty or anxious. I can express strong feelings such as anger, frustration, or disappointment. I can discuss my beliefs without judging those who don't agree with me. I'm able to acknowledge and take responsibility for my own mistakes. I feel capable of learning new things and performing new tasks. I can easily request help and information from others. I'm able to express my honest opinion to others, even if they don't agree. I tell others when their behavior is not acceptable to me. I can assert my beliefs even when the majority disagrees with me. I believe my needs are as important as those of others and should be considered. I can speak confidently in group situations. Oops, I think I made a mistake. There were 3 other questions there, but it got repeated. But if you are keeping track of how many times you said yes, right? A ballpark, if you're able to get 10 or more yes, then yeah, you are consistently assertive, right? Otherwise, we'll have to learn. The first time I did this, I got a 5 or a 6, right? This was years ago. And we don't have to go through such an assessment. I think each one of us, we know ourselves, whether we are assertive or not. And at any point in life, we probably go through different behaviors. We've been in situations where we are aggressive, where we are passive aggressive, especially at home, and assertive as well, right? But there is one thing that's helped me always, right? The 3-step formula to communicate assertively, and it became a habit over a period of, I would say, months and years, where it is now more like I do that every time I'm in a when there's going to be conflict or contention, and when there are strong discussions that are going on. Well, let's quickly look at it. 1, state the facts in an unemotional way without judging or exaggerating, paraphrasing what the other individual had just now mentioned, right? We will look at an example just down the line in a few seconds. 2, state the problem in your view using I messages. It's always from our perspective. I feel this way. I believe that this is what is happening. So using I messages. And finally, state our opinions or needs while listing the behavior, results, and feelings. Once I give the example, I think it'll be easier. Let's take a scenario. A colleague who's habitually late for meetings, right, is showing up again 15 minutes late for a meeting. So an inappropriate response would be, you're so rude, you're always late, why is this happening, and blah, blah, blah. An assertive response would be just to state the facts in an unemotional way. We were supposed to meet at 11:30, but now it's 11:45. So 1, we have stated the facts in a very, we are not judging, we are not exaggerating, we are just stating the fact, right? 2, state the problem in your view. Inappropriate response, see, now this meeting is ruined, I don't believe we can do whatever we wanted to start to do, and blah, blah, blah. Assertive response, now I have only 15 minutes to discuss our agenda as I have another meeting at 12, right? We are stating the problem from our perspective. 3, list the behavior, results, and feelings. An appropriate response would be, when you arrive late, I have to wait, and I feel that you aren't respecting my time. And if it's just once, that's okay. You seem to be doing this multiple times. So I'd like for you to be punctual. is going to be the assertive response. So the 1, 2, 3, state the facts in an unemotional way. Don't judge or exaggerate. State the problem in your view, and then list the behaviors, results, and feelings. This might sound very simple, but actually it's quite powerful. And now that I've been trying to do this for like years, and it's more subconscious, it truly helps when I go through these 3 phases, right? Automatically the brain, starts thinking about, okay, remove your emotion, because naturally in such a setting, our emotions might be running high. And there are times when we have to show our emotions, that's okay. But most of the times it's always good that we are assertive rather than aggressive, right? And this 3-step formula has truly helped me. And I hope that you're able to, it might help you as well. But again, just to sum all this up, body language is very important, right? Making direct eye contact, but not showing that aggression in our eyes, even though you might be feeling that anger and frustration. Speaking clearly and calmly, tone of voice becomes very critical. Our physical stance, or the way we are sitting, bringing our body forward or getting into another person's space, always drives the wrong behavior. Always use, when you talk about the behavior, talk about the results of the behavior, and then how you feel, right? When you did this, then this happened, and I feel this way, right? That kind of sums up very well. And again, those I statements are very critical, and very specific and direct in the points, right? That's where I've struggled in the past. I try to, sugarcoat it or beat around the bush so that the other person doesn't take offense. And even now I do that quite a bit, right? I'm learning. But being direct and to the point always helps. I will need more time to finish this. Would you approve that, right? And being non-direct as well. If we are going and having a request, will you please get that done today? Is one way of saying it. Would you be able to get this completed today? This is the reason why this is more critical. Do you need some help from me? To help you finish this task. Another way to get that done, right? So, but to sum up, it's a skill. Assertive communication is a skill, and just like any other skill, it can be learned and developed. With that, I get to the end of this. I know it was a very short talk, but this was a half hour. Usually there's a 4-hour workshop that I have for assertive communication, but I try to sum this up in half hour. With that, I'll open it up to the floor.
It was a very assertive talk, so thank you.
Thank you.
It was a good session, Karthick.
Thank you, Sandhu.
Yeah, it was a lovely session. One thing is, it sounds easy, but it's one of the most complicated things to put at practice, right?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more at all, because I truly struggle with that, especially in a conflict scenario. I'll have to recollect my thoughts, calm down, and then go through this 3-step process in my mind and then respond. I struggle, but I'm learning and I'm conscious about it. That's all I can do.
So is this workshop you're talking about, is it online, Karthick?
No, this is something that I've done for my teams within Caterpillar. It's more face-to-face. I've not done this online.
Okay.
I should probably try it, but I've never ventured into anything more than an hour online.
You should try.
I should. I like, being in a small setting, walking around the room, meeting people, talking to them. I like it that way, right? When you go online, it's going to be PowerPoint intensive, and I don't know. Probably I should try that sometime, but yeah.
Hello, sir. Thanks for the session. And I need to ask you one thing.
Sure, Ajay.
Yeah. So, assertive communication would be perfect for a company which is established or still developing stage. So, for a startup, like each and everything should be done at on time. So, how can we do that in a startup? Is it possible, or because I'm actually 21, I don't know anything about the workspace. So,
See, in my opinion, assertive communication, irrespective of workplace, whether it is a new company, small company, large company, or at home, or with friends, community, or in your college, I think this comes into picture everywhere, right? You're in a project with your friends and you're working on your master's project. You will be facing scenarios where you will need to use this. There is a small startup, a bunch of 5 people working together on something. Contention will come up, tempers might flare up and all that, but at the end of the day, assertive communication will go a long way compared to being aggressive and then later coming back to realize that maybe we should have done something differently. So from personal experience, I don't believe that the size of a company or a startup or an established company would actually matter. End of the day, it's that relationship with that person or that team or whomever you're working with, and that's what is going to matter. And at home as well, right? I mean, when I'm in an argument with my wife or with my parents, I can choose to use whether an aggressive behavior or the assertive behavior, right? It's a switch that we can turn on and off. But I think being assertive helps rather than being aggressive.
yeah, thank you. I think that would be helpful for a longer run, like in every perspective. Thanks for the info.
You're welcome, Ajay.
I have a question, Karthik.
Yes, Soumya.
So I think I see what you're saying about being assertive over aggressive, right? But I think oftentimes people are passive, which I think is a worse
Yes.
sort of behavior to take on. And being passive comes a lot even from your the cultural upbringing, and especially there in an Indian culture, right? Where you are taught as if it's rude. Like the examples that you pointed out. Hey, the meeting was supposed to start at 11:45, 11:30. You showed up at 11:45. Even sort of observing those sorts of situations could be looked upon as a rude observation.
I understand.
You have to adjust to people. Is the cultural feeling that we all have, right? Or it's sort of there in the social ethos. How do you continue to be assertive in light of that cultural fabric that we are all a part of?
So I will answer that in 2 ways, right? One, the first thing that you talked about, people who are passive, usually passive, and to encourage them to be more assertive, I think we need to start celebrating and accepting failures and being able to respect opinions, right? When you're in a meeting setting or anything like that, a lot of times people are passive because either they're wondering, would my voice be heard? Or what if whatever I'm talking about doesn't make sense? Even in a corporate environment, that happens even today. Even you're in a meeting and there could be differences in hierarchy in terms of the people sitting inside that room. When we build a culture, and that can't be just removed. It is going to be very difficult unless we build a culture of, one, celebrating failures, two, listening to everyone. Right? It's not that we're going to act on everything that is being discussed, but ensuring that everyone is heard is very critical. And giving that opportunity and to ensure that it's happens consistently across the organization. That's why I'm saying it's culture and it has to be built over a period of time. Because if it just happens in a pocket, then again, that might get lost in the noise. Right. So as an organization, that's only coming from a personal experience where that's something that we, at least in the teams that I've been part of, we've been conscious about celebrating failures. First thing is celebrating failures, because that's where it starts. My younger one, honestly, she always fears, failure. She'll be like, oh, what if whatever I'm saying is wrong? She's 7 years old, but today she seems to be having that, and I'm even struggling changing that mindset with a kid. So with somebody who's been in this culture for couple of decades or so, it becomes a lot more difficult. So that's where I think as an organization we have to help change that. If not, this would just go on. It's a very good question. It's difficult to change that, but it's both top down as well as bottom up. It has to be both ways, but having the right set of people who are with the right mindset, I do believe that we can do that. We used to have something like failure Fridays, where we used to celebrate failures. Group of people coming together, they talk about the failures that they had that week, and then we used to celebrate those failures, right? That helped. That particular team, there was a lot of issues. There were a lot of issues going on. Morale was down and everything, but we were able to do that consistently every week, and we learned something from it. It's not just celebrating failure and then stopping at that, but people over a period of time, they were not worried about what others would think. They were not worried about if their voice will be heard, right? So again, boils down to organizational culture.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hey, thanks for a great session. I really liked your three-step formula, and I know you at some point you said that over a lot of practice, this has become subconscious for you to respond in that way. But in the beginning, it might have been a little difficult. I'm sure it will be for me, and especially it seems that one has to be able to emotionally distance oneself from the situation to some extent before it is easier to respond in this way. So do you have any suggestions for making that transition consciously?
Yeah, I'll talk about what I did at that point in time, right? One, I was very vocal with my immediate team. I was open. I told them that I'm doing this, which means that I'm not going to immediately respond. I'm thinking, and I'm going to take some time to respond. The reason is I'm going through this, right? So I was very, I was vocal about it. I told them that I'm going through this and it's going to take some time. And lucky me, the team that I was working with, they understood. And to be honest, I got a few of them who joined me as well doing that. So it became like a group therapy session for all of us, and that's how it started for me. There is no one way that we can do something like that, but I think it's being conscious, being slow in our responses. For me, I used to be very short-tempered, and so there'll be a quick emotional outburst. That's where I struggled. That was the first step. So I had to calm myself. And when I knew that I was getting into a meeting or a situation where I knew that we were going to have such conversations, I used to do a lot more preparation, right? And that too, when you're working in a matrix organization, I've been in situations where it's really like 5 different groups coming together, and we'll be talking about a customer issue or a product issue, and I'll probably prepare, spend twice the time to prepare and go for that session than anything else. So it's just not just one thing. I've done multiple things, but one thing was getting the people around you involved could help.
Okay, thanks. That was helpful. Great session.
Thank you, Puneet.
Actually, I would like to continue to the point that Ajay Sabha Anand Ramanujam made. He spoke about startup cultures. He have been working in startups for in a startup for the last 6 years,
Okay.
and I've always had to constantly manage multiple clients and a small team. So with less resources, there's like more that needs to be delivered and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So there is very little energy that you are left out with. So there is one personality is one part, and then there is behavior. So being aware of personality is the first step that I was able to take. But controlling that behavior required a lot of energy for me. But in a startup environment, you don't have different teams to do different tasks, and you are automatically expected to wear multiple caps and do a lot of things. For instance, following up on, like, I'm a marketer, but I used to follow up on invoices, that whether they're getting paid or not,
Yeah.
or do the recruitment, for instance, do profile checking and all that sort of stuff. And for instance, if the AC is not working, calling the AC mechanic, a lot of things, different things.
Yeah.
I've generally found it very difficult to be aware of my behavior, and then suddenly when someone gives me feedback, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I've actually been like this. And then at the end of the day, I become very apologetic, and I'm like, okay, I need to be more aware of this. But I've always found it difficult to be consistent with that. Do you do anything in terms of this sort of we can only change ourselves? That's one thing that I'm confident about. But how do you do that in terms of gathering the energy?
So let me answer it this way, right? Again, I'm drawing from my experience. I've never worked in a startup environment, but I've been in a similar situation that you talked about, where there were so many things that were going on, and I had to juggle so many different things. And same thing, energy is taken up in all different directions, and we still have to maintain that composure and that personality, right? What helped me was that I had trust in a couple of people that I was able to delegate. Right. Again, it may not be the same situation with you because you're talking about a small team, and but it's always helpful to find that at least one person whom you can trust and delegate some of even the key or critical things that you do. Right. That's what I did at that point in time, where certain very key responsibilities I was able to give it to those two individuals, and I trusted them. It's not that things went smooth. There were ups and downs, and we had to do a lot of coaching and so on. But at the end of the day, the trust was still there. They were also learning. I was also learning, so we were able to do that. But that helped some of that in that situation. I'm not sure. Again, in your scenario, you need to find that person or people whom you can completely trust, and there's so much invested in what you're doing and your vision and being able to deliver on the same. See, the challenge that we face is that we expect certain things to be done a certain way. We expect certain quality to come out of whatever they're doing, or certain responses or velocity with which work is done. And a lot of times that expectation might not be met when we delegate. But again, that's where setting the expectations, and so upfront, I would set the expectation as to what is needed or what is doable, what is not doable. We went through those ups and downs, but that was a coaching opportunity as well for me, where I could coach the two of them. And actually, honestly, what happened was at that point in time, I was moving into a different role, so I split my team into two, and those two became leaders of those two organizations. And that happened because they were working with me for almost a year and a half, where I got that opportunity to delegate, and they were learning in their job as well. So I don't know if I answered your question, but
no, you kind of did, because and it kind of touched upon another weakness that I try to work on, which is delegation. So
delegation is very difficult. I can relate to that. It's because even a simple thing, right? Like, for example, simple thing, I'm creating a presentation and I have a vision for that presentation. And I might have a skill that another person might not have, but still I have so many other things to do, so I have to delegate. It is giving the explaining that vision and explaining that expectation. That's where I struggled, but that's where again I try to learn and get a little bit better, where I'm able to explain that vision I have in my mind or what I want to be done, so that the other person can go work on it. They may not come back with the same result, but when I'm able to explain that vision, it worked better. Rather than just saying that I want this to be done, then we might be in different directions. And constant checkpoints also help.
Hey, thanks, man. Thanks for the question and answer for this.
You're welcome, Ajay.
Anyone else has any other questions? This is Sanjeev here. So it's probably a little bit over time. So just in case someone has questions, on behalf of the Alumni Association, I would like to thank you, Sekar, for a wonderful talk. And I'm sure most of us are in different facets of our life, and I'm sure it's touched upon and it's going to help all of us in different aspects as we continue. Because these are all things that we all know about, I'm sure, somewhere deep down. But it's when people like you kind of bring it up in a more concise way, it gets a bit more appreciated. So thank you again for putting it up for us.
Thank you, Sanjeev. I enjoyed this session. Appreciate this opportunity. So
Thank you, Karthik sir, for your
Hey, thanks a lot, man.
hey, Praveen. You are our inspiration, Praveen. Thank you.
அப்ப அடுத்தது நீ மீசையா வளர்க்க வேண்டியதுதான்.
அது கஷ்டம். அது வந்து ரொம்ப கஷ்டம்.
Lovely. Thank you.
Lovely all. Thanks. See you again next time.